Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
I was 9 when my legs went out from under me for the first time. Not from an injury, from the shock of realizing nobody in my own house would ever have my back. Melissa, my older sister, was the golden child. She could have set the curtains on fire, and Mom would have asked if she needed more matches. Dad was a retired Marine. 6'3", square jaw, pain is weakness leaving the body, practically tattooed on his forehead. He pushed that line like it was scripture, and I was supposed to live by it whether I liked it or not. Mom backed him up on everything. Her loyalty chain was simple. Dad first, Melissa second, me somewhere dead last. That afternoon I came home from school and saw Melissa in the driveway with my BMX. She had this smug little grin, standing on the garage roof like she was queen of the neighborhood. I yelled at her to get down, but she just laughed and let the bike roll right off the edge. It slammed the concrete so hard the handlebars bent in half. "What the hell is wrong with you?" I shouted, grabbing it before she could stomp on it for good measure. She shrugged, totally unfazed. "Oops." I dragged the bike inside, fuming. "Mom, Dad, Melissa dropped my bike off the roof." Dad didn't even look up from the sports section. "Then don't leave it where she can get it." "It was in the garage," I said, my voice cracking with frustration. Melissa leaned against the doorframe. Fake innocent. "It was an accident. He's overreacting." Mom's eyes barely left the pot she was stirring. "Stop blaming your sister for everything. You've got a bad habit of that." My fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. The metal taste of anger was in my mouth, but what was the point? They'd already decided I was lying, same as always. That's when I felt it, that strange, sinking sensation in my gut. Not just disappointment, something heavier, the kind of weight that knocks the wind out of you even when nobody's touched you. My legs felt weak, like my body was giving up before I could even fight back. I turned away before they saw my face, wheeled the busted bike back to the garage, and set it against the wall. The bent handlebars leaned to one side like the thing was broken in spirit too. Melissa followed me out, still grinning. "Better hide it next time," she said, stepping past me. I picked up the bike and shoved it deeper into the shadows. By the time I was 19, I'd had enough. I packed my car, drove until the highway signs looked nothing like home, and didn't stop until I'd crossed 3 state lines. That first night in my dingy little apartment, mattress on the floor, I felt lighter than I had in years. I built a life I actually wanted, got a steady warehouse supervisor job, earned respect without having to fight for it every damn day, made friends who didn't look for ways to humiliate me for sport. For years, I only went back for the bare minimum. A wedding, a funeral, the kind of guilt trip events you couldn't dodge without becoming the family villain. Then one Thursday night, my phone lit up with Mom across the screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Melissa's turning 38, she said. "We're having a barbecue this Saturday. Everyone will be there." I didn't need her to spell out who everyone was. Melissa's smug husband, her pack of loud, overfed friends, Dad parked by the grill like he was hosting a military banquet. "I've got a busy weekend," I said. "You work too much. Come see your family." The tone in her voice wasn't a request. I hung up thinking maybe I could get in and out before the usual garbage started. Drop a $100 gift card on the table, choke down a burger, leave before someone decided I was the evening's entertainment. I booked a motel room instead of staying in my old bedroom. The idea of sleeping under their roof again made my skin crawl. The room was small, smelled faintly like bleach, but it was mine. No one barking orders, no one telling me I was the problem. Saturday came hotter than hell. I stood in front of the mirror at the motel, holding the gift card like it was some kind of shield. My plan was airtight. Arrive on time so I wouldn't get cornered alone, keep conversations surface level, leave before my patience expired. I pulled into their driveway at exactly 1 o'clock. The backyard was already packed, music blaring, kids running around with popsicles melting down their arms. Melissa was front and center, drink in hand, talking loud enough for everyone to hear. She spotted me and put on a smile so fake I could practically see the cracks in it. "Look who decided to show up," she called out. I gave her a nod, kept moving toward the quieter side of the yard. I found a spot near the fence with a couple of people I barely knew, safer ground. Even from there, I could feel Dad's eyes tracking me, like I was an uninvited guest at my own family's table. Every few minutes, I'd glance toward the house, reminding myself I could walk out any time. The air was thick with grilled meat and tension. I sipped my soda, counted the minutes. The sooner I handed over that card, the sooner I could vanish. I didn't know it yet, but that countdown wasn't ending with me walking out under my own power. It was ending with flashing lights, a stretcher, and the kind of silence you only get when a family realizes they can't talk their way out of what just happened. I tossed the empty can in the trash and started toward the patio. I reached the patio and the noise level hit me like a wall. Melissa's whole crew clustered around the deck, each one with a can of hard seltzer in hand, swapping stories about cruises and all-inclusive resorts like they were auditioning for a travel commercial. Melissa spotted me cutting through. Her expression shifted into something polite but cold, like she was already lining up the next joke at my expense. "Well, if it isn't our special guest," she drawled loud enough for the whole deck to hear. A couple people glanced over like I was some exotic animal wandering through their yard. I forced a tight smile and moved on, settling near a quieter corner with her husband's cousin, a quiet guy in a baseball cap, and two other people I didn't recognize. We talked about nothing, weather, traffic, how the burgers smelled, and I let the conversation wash over me while keeping my back to the rest of them. An hour in, I made the mistake of drifting too close to the main group. Melissa was mid-story, already laughing before the punchline. And then, get this, he shows up to the championship game in socks because his sneakers disappeared. She used air quotes like she'd just told the funniest joke in the world. Whole team had to wait while he borrowed some ratty pair from the lost and found. I felt my jaw lock. "You mean the time you hid them in the dryer so I'd miss warm-ups?" She sipped her drink and smirked. "Accidents happen." The group roared with laughter like humiliation was the party's theme. I stood, brushing crumbs off my jeans. "All right, I'm out." Melissa stepped in front of me, half drunk and grinning. "One more drink, little bro. Don't be boring." "No thanks," I said, stepping to the side. Her smile dropped like a mask hitting the floor. "It's just one drink. Don't be a—" I said no. Something in her eyes hardened. Not anger exactly, more like calculation. I moved toward the sliding door to grab my jacket. The only way inside was across the new composite deck Dad had been bragging about on Facebook for weeks. As soon as my shoe hit the boards, I noticed they had a slick sheen, like someone had just hosed them down. Before the thought could even form all the way, my feet shot out from under me. My back slammed into the edge of the patio with a crack that rattled my teeth. My head whipped back, smacking something hard. White stars flashed across my vision, then everything tunneled. I tried to sit up. Nothing. My legs were gone, not numb exactly, just gone, like they'd been erased from my body. The crowd noise blurred into a low roar in my ears. My heart started pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. I slapped my hands against my thighs. No reaction. "Hey!" The word came out shaky. I swallowed hard. I can't move my legs. No one rushed forward. No one knelt beside me. Just a ripple of awkward murmurs like they couldn't decide if this was serious or just another scene to watch. Panic hit full force, my breaths coming short and sharp. I tried again to push myself up, but my arms were shaking too hard to hold me. I could feel the heat of the sun on my face, the grit of the deck under my palms, but nothing below my waist. I turned my head, searching for someone, anyone, who wasn't pretending this was all some kind of joke. The world narrowed to the pounding in my ears, the spinning in my head, and the cold realization that whatever had just happened, my life had split in two, before the fall and after, and I was already in the after. "Get up, quit clowning," Melissa laughed, glancing at her friends like I was some cheap entertainment. "I'm serious," I said, my voice coming out hoarse. "I can't move my legs." Dad stepped closer, towering over me, arms crossed. "The deck's fine. Walk it off." "I can't." My throat tightened. "Something's wrong. Call an ambulance." He shook his head like I'd just failed a drill. "You're fine. Stop making a scene." Mom dropped to a knee beside me, her face tight but her voice low enough so only I could hear. "You're ruining her party. Get up." The edges of my vision were pulsing black. My fingertips tingled like they were falling asleep, but it was spreading fast. My stomach flipped, bile creeping up my throat. "I'm not joking," I rasped. Please, call 911. I can't feel anything. Nobody moved. Not Melissa, not Dad, not the ring of faces staring down at me with that mix of awkwardness and amusement. Then I heard a firm voice cut through the noise. Move! A woman in sunglasses and a baseball cap pushed past the crowd and dropped to her knees beside me. I recognized her, Tracy, the neighbor from across the street. She didn't waste a second. Can you wiggle your toes? She asked. No, I said, panic hitting harder. She looked up at the others. Don't move him. This could be a spinal cord injury. Mom's mouth tightened. He's fine, you don't need to. Tracy's eyes snapped to her. I'm a nurse. If you move him, you could paralyze him permanently. Do you understand me? That shut Mom up for half a second, but then she started again. It's her birthday. We don't need sirens pulling up here. Tracy pulled her phone from her pocket. We need paramedics, now. I said, Mom started, but Tracy had already dialed. This is Tracy from Maple Street, she said into the phone, her voice clipped and professional. Adult male, possible spinal cord injury, no movement in lower extremities, fell on a deck, conscious but symptomatic. Yes, immediate response. Melissa stood a few feet away, arms crossed, her fake smile gone. Dad muttered something under his breath and walked toward the grill like checking the burgers was somehow more important. I stared at Tracy, trying to focus on her voice instead of the dizziness pulling me under. She stayed beside me, her hand on my shoulder to keep me still. You're going to be okay, she said quietly. But her eyes told me she wasn't certain. The heat from the sun pressed down, mixing with the cold sweat running along my back. I could hear people whispering around me, but their words blurred together. Somewhere in the distance, a siren started wailing. Tracy kept her eyes on me. Stay with me. Don't move your neck. Just breathe. I clenched my jaw and stared at the cloudless sky above the deck, willing myself not to black out before help arrived. The siren cut out as the ambulance pulled up, and within seconds, 2 paramedics were at my side. Tracy gave them a quick rundown while they dropped to their knees and started working. Spinal precautions, one of them said. Let's get a collar on him. A cold plastic brace slid around my neck, locking my head in place. I stared straight up as they slid a backboard beside me. How's the pain? The taller one asked. I can't feel anything below my waist, I said. My voice sounded strange, like it was coming from someone else's mouth. They lifted me with practiced precision, keeping me flat. The movement sent a jolt of nausea through me, and I had to bite down to keep from throwing up. While one paramedic checked my vitals, the other turned toward the deck. He crouched, running his hand across the boards. When he brought it back up, his palm shone. This isn't water, he said, rubbing his fingers together. Feels like oil. That word landed like a brick. The chatter around us died instantly. Melissa froze. Every eye turned to her. Her mouth twisted into a half-smile that didn't hold. It was a joke, she muttered. I just put some of Dad's deck oil down so he'd slip a little. The air went dead. Even the kids stopped yelling in the background. Dad's face drained of color. You... what? It wasn't supposed to... Melissa started, but the paramedic cut her off. Ma'am, that's extremely dangerous. He could have been killed. She opened her mouth, shut it, and stared at the ground. The taller paramedic pulled a small notepad from his pocket. We'll need to document that. Dispatch, can you send law enforcement to this location for a possible assault? His radio crackled back an affirmative. She sipped her drink and smirked. Must have been a fluke. The shorter paramedic didn't even look up from strapping me down. Ma'am, that's not an accident. That's negligence at best, criminal at worst. Dad turned away, muttering something I couldn't hear. Melissa just kept her eyes locked on the deck, like if she didn't look at anyone, maybe this would all disappear. The taller paramedic leaned over me. We're going to roll you out now. Try to stay calm. Calm. Sure. My heart felt like it was trying to kick its way out of my chest. They lifted the backboard onto the stretcher, the straps biting into my arms and legs. Not that I could feel the lower ones. As they wheeled me toward the gate, I caught sight of 2 police officers stepping into the yard. One of them was already pulling out a notebook, eyes scanning the crowd. Behind me, Mom's voice rose. You can't seriously think— "Ma'am, step aside," one officer said. The gate swung open, and the bright glare of the street hit my eyes. The paramedics maneuvered me toward the ambulance, their boots crunching against the gravel. I turned my head just enough to see the yard one last time. Dad was by the grill, arguing with one of the paramedics. Mom had her arms crossed, shaking her head. Melissa stood frozen in place, her gaze fixed somewhere past the crowd, as if pretending none of it was real. The stretcher lifted into the ambulance, and the doors slammed shut. The sound echoed in the small space, sealing me off from the only world I'd known, and the one that had just shown me exactly how far it would go to pretend I didn't matter. The ambulance ride was a blur of sirens, IV lines, and the steady voice of the paramedic telling me to hang on. The next clear memory I had was waking under blinding white lights with the steady beep of a heart monitor behind me. A man in scrubs leaned over. "You're in the trauma unit. I'm Dr. Levin, neurosurgery. You took a bad fall. CT and MRI show an incomplete spinal cord injury in your lumbar region." My throat was dry. "English." He nodded. "You can't move your legs right now because the nerves are damaged. There's swelling. We'll work to reduce it, but I can't promise how much function will come back. It's possible you'll walk again. It's also possible you won't." That sat like a stone in my chest. "So, this could be permanent." "Yes," he said plainly, "but we'll fight for recovery." Not long after he left, a man in a sport coat walked in, flipping open a notebook. "Detective Harrow, City Police. Need to get your statement while it's fresh." I told him everything. The fall, the way my family dismissed me, the neighbors stepping in, the paramedic finding the oil. "Melissa admitted it in front of everyone," I said. He wrote fast. "And your parents refused medical aid until the neighbor intervened?" "Yeah." My voice hardened. "They made it clear my well-being came second to keeping her party intact." Harrow closed the notebook. "We've already spoken to the paramedics and several witnesses. Melissa Coleman was arrested for felony reckless endangerment. Your parents are being investigated for criminal negligence." Hearing it out loud was strange, like he was talking about some other family. That night, an assistant district attorney stopped by. "Given the nature of your injury, you have the right to pursue civil damages," she explained. "Loss of income, medical costs, pain, and suffering. You could be looking at a substantial claim." "How substantial?" I asked. She didn't blink. "Potentially 7 figures, depending on insurance coverage and assets. You should get an attorney as soon as possible." The next morning, I called a lawyer a coworker had once used after a workplace accident. His name was Jeff Wallace, sharp, direct, and not afraid to go for the throat. He came by that afternoon, a leather folder in hand. "Here's the deal," he said, sitting beside my bed. "We start with the homeowner's insurance. If that doesn't cover it, we go after personal assets. Your parents own property?" "They've got a house, fully paid off," I said. "Good. That's leverage." He tapped his pen against the folder. "Melissa's criminal case will help ours. A felony plea or conviction strengthens civil damages. We'll push for a settlement, but if they fight, we'll take it to trial." I looked at him. "They're my family." He shrugged. "Right now, they're defendants, and you're the guy who's going to be paying for medical care for the rest of his life. Don't confuse blood with loyalty." For once, I didn't argue. By the time he left, I had paperwork signed and a plan in motion. The IV pump clicked behind me. The pain in my lower back was a steady throb, and the reality was setting in. This wasn't just a bad day. This was the start of a long, ugly fight, and I was done playing the part of the family punching bag. 2 weeks later, they wheeled me out of the hospital and into a van headed for the spinal rehab center. I thought I'd be ready. I wasn't. The place wasn't depressing, but it was sobering. Every hallway had people in wheelchairs, walkers, braces. Some were teenagers, some had gray hair and had been living like this for decades. My first day, a therapist named Carla showed me how to transfer from bed to chair without falling on my face. It looked easy when she demonstrated. My arms shook like I was bench pressing a truck. "You'll get stronger," she said, "but only if you keep trying." So I did. Every day was a grind. Resistance bands, free weights, learning how to push up curbs in the chair. how to use grab bars to get onto a toilet, how to shower without ending up on the floor. The first time I wheeled myself across the therapy gym without stopping, I felt more accomplished than I had in years. Some nights I'd end up in the lounge talking to other patients. One guy, Rico, had been paralyzed from the waist down for 15 years after a car crash. "You stop thinking about what you lost," he told me. "You start thinking about what you can still do." That stuck with me. Meanwhile, Jeff kept me updated on the legal front. 3 weeks in, he came by with the news. "Melissa took a plea," he said, flipping through papers. 2 years in state prison, 3 years probation after. I waited for some kind of reaction to hit me, but all I felt was a flat, tired sense of inevitability. "And your parents," he went on, "got probation and community service. They'll avoid jail, but the negligence finding will follow them. That helps us." A month later, he was back again, this time with a smile. "We've got a civil settlement. $1 million from the homeowner's insurance, $1.5 million from selling their house." I stared at him. They sold their house? They didn't have a choice. We were ready to take them to trial, and they didn't want the publicity. "You're walking away with $2.5 million clear." I didn't cheer. I didn't gloat. I just nodded. The money was practical. It covered the cost of modifying my apartment, buying a wheelchair that actually fit me, putting ramps where I needed them. It meant I could take time off without wondering how I'd pay rent. But there were no calls, no visits, no "how are you doing?" from the people whose approval I'd once worked so hard to earn. They were ghosts now, and for the first time in my life, I was okay with that. By the time I left the rehab center after 6 weeks, I could transfer on my own, wheel around without help, and use my upper body like it was my only engine. I had scars, physical and otherwise, but I was moving forward without them. Outpatient therapy was a different beast. No nurses hovering, no one reminding me to take it slow. It was just me, a stubborn streak, and hours of pushing my limits. Little by little, the dead zone in my lower body started waking up. First, a faint tingle in my thighs, then a twitch in my left foot that made the therapist grin like I'd just scored the winning touchdown. 6 months in, I had enough strength for leg braces and a walker. Walking was slow, awkward, and exhausting, but it was mine. Every step was a middle finger to the day my family left me lying on that deck. The warehouse was out of the question. Too many stairs, too much heavy lifting. But my company surprised me. My boss called one afternoon. "We'll set you up for admin work from home. You know the systems better than anyone." It wasn't the same as running the floor, but it kept me in the game. Paychecks still landed, health insurance stayed intact, and I didn't have to start over somewhere new. Somewhere along the line, I realized the physical stuff wasn't the only rehab I needed. I found a counselor who specialized in family trauma. First session, I told her the story from start to finish. She didn't flinch. "You've been living with their dismissal your whole life," she said. "The injury isn't the only thing you have to recover from." She was right. I'd spent decades proving myself to people who never intended to see me. Therapy didn't erase that history, but it taught me how to stop dragging it into every relationship I had left. My friends stepped up in ways I didn't expect. They drove me to appointments, helped with grocery runs, sat with me on bad days without trying to fix me. At some point, they stopped feeling like friends and started feeling like family. One night, a buddy of mine sent me a flyer for a local disability advocacy group. "They meet downtown every other Thursday," he said. "Might be worth checking out." I went, half expecting to feel out of place. Instead, I walked, braced and slow, into a room full of people who got it instantly. No pity, no awkward questions. Just straight talk about accessibility, policy changes, and how to make the city less of an obstacle course. It lit something in me. I signed up for committees, helped organize events, even spoke at a city council meeting about curb cuts and crosswalk timers. My voice, the one that had been ignored for so long, was suddenly being heard. Every meeting, every email, every small win made the distance between me and my old life a little bigger. I was building something new, and this time it didn't require anyone's permission. 2 years out, my life doesn't look anything like it used to, and I'm glad for it. I've got an accessible ground floor apartment with wide doorways, lowered counters, and a bathroom I can actually turn around in. My car's fitted with hand controls so I can drive wherever I want without asking for help. Most days I'm still in the chair, but I can walk short distances with braces if I pace myself. I keep the walker in the corner, a reminder that I can still put one foot in front of the other, even if it's slow. Melissa got out of prison a few months back. One morning there was an envelope in my mailbox with her handwriting on it. Inside was a neatly folded apology letter, full of phrases like deeply regret and never intended. I read it once, put it back in the envelope, and slid it into a drawer. It's still there. I haven't decided if I'll respond. My parents, they live in Florida now. From what I hear, they tell their neighbors it was a tragic accident, like I just happened to fall wrong on a sunny afternoon. Let them. The truth doesn't need their stamp to be real. Somewhere along the way, I met Claire. She's part of the advocacy group, a firecracker with zero patience for excuses, mine included. She sees me, not just the chair. She doesn't walk on eggshells, doesn't treat me like I'm breakable. The first time she made fun of my terrible taste in music, I knew she was the real deal. I spend a lot of my free time back at the rehab center, sitting across from guys who are still raw, still staring down the same mountain I had to climb. I tell them what no doctor or therapist can guarantee. It doesn't get easier. You get stronger. Some believe me right away, others don't, not yet. I know they'll figure it out in their own time. The injury took a lot. My old job, my independence for a while, the last threads tying me to my family. But it also handed me something I didn't expect. Freedom from ever needing their approval again. I'm not the 9-year-old who got laughed at for telling the truth. I'm not the 20-something who kept showing up to prove I belonged. I'm the man who got knocked flat and stood back up in the only way that mattered.
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.